There are days when you just want to go for a walk, look in shop windows, spend money you shouldn't have, and pretend that your bank account isn't suffering. I was in exactly that spirit. A quiet day, no rush, walking around the mall like anyone else. I strolled around the food court, looked in a few windows, and went into a handbag store that I've always liked. Nothing too extravagant, but there were enough beautiful models to make me consider spending money I hadn't planned on. And that's when I felt that look. Not just any look. It was that heavy, judgmental look that you feel even without turning your head. At first, I thought it was all in my head. I picked up a bag, analyzed the leather, looked at the price. I mentally choked, put it back, and carried on walking. But in the reflection of the shop window, I saw a woman standing a few meters away, watching me with a look like she was waiting for me to do something wrong. Blonde, well-dressed, with a posture that screamed superiority. She wasn't there by chance. I moved on to another section of the store, pretending not to notice. But when I took another item in my hand, she moved too. She didn't try to be discreet. Always nearby, always looking, always evaluating. That's when I understood. She didn't think I belonged there. It didn't matter if I was well-dressed, if I just wanted to buy something like everyone else. To her, I didn't look like the kind of person who would spend money in that kind of store. And if I wasn't there to buy, then, in her mind, I could only be there for something wrong. I continued my walk, ignoring her annoying presence. But my every move was followed. Did I pick up an item? She stopped. Did I change aisles? She followed, pretending to fiddle with something, but not really paying attention. The reflection in the shop windows didn't lie. I passed the more expensive handbag section and headed for the sunglasses section. I picked one up, tried it on in the mirror, analyzed it, and then, in the reflection, I saw what I had expected. She was there, standing on the other side, arms crossed, staring at me as if she was waiting for me to commit a crime. The most ridiculous part? She didn't even work in the store. She was just some random customer who decided it was her duty to keep an eye on me as if she were a volunteer security guard. I sighed. I knew exactly where this was going, and frankly, I was starting to enjoy myself. If there's one thing that never fails, it's inconvenience radar. I knew this woman wasn't going to give up easily, and I was right. Even though I pretended not to notice, I could feel her presence just a few meters away, always watching me, always following me, as if waiting for me to do something wrong. I picked up a few more products to look at, pretending to be uninterested, but testing how far she would go. With every move I made, she moved too. When I approached the handbag shelf, there she was, analyzing a keyring as if it were the most fascinating thing in the world. When I went to the sunglasses, she suddenly decided she needed to try one on, even though she never took her eyes off me. But it wasn't enough for her to just follow me. She wanted action. After a few minutes, I saw in the reflection of the shop window that the woman had called an employee. She made a point of waving and pointing in my direction, as if warning me of a threat. She whispered something, with the expression of someone doing the world a favor, as if she were preventing a major theft before it even happened. The employee looked at me briefly and then back at her, looking confused. Apparently, this was nothing new for her. She'd probably dealt with this kind of customer before, the kind who thinks their prejudice is worth more than the facts. I could have walked away, avoided the mess, but now I wanted to see how far this woman was willing to humiliate herself. I carried on as normal, without hurrying, picking up one of the most expensive models of glasses in the store and trying them on in the mirror. Not that I was convinced to buy it, but just to see her reaction. And it worked. The woman was impatient. Her mouth tightened into a thin line. Her eyes narrowed. It was as if every second I spent there, without being expelled, was a personal insult. And then, unable to contain herself any longer, she took the most ridiculous action possible. She approached me and touched my arm. I turned around slowly. She was standing there with a polite, fake smile, looking at me as if she was about to give me a lecture.
Do you need help finding something?
The urge to laugh almost overcame me. She really thought she was in control of the situation. But now, I was going to make sure that the only person who left humiliated was her. If there was a limit to this woman's audacity, I hadn't found it yet. After following me around the store, whispering to an employee and analyzing me as if she were dealing with a criminal case, she now had the nerve to approach me and act as if she were helping me. I didn't respond immediately. I just looked at her, absorbing every detail. The forced smile, the rigid posture, the eyes full of a false kindness that didn't match the way she had been treating me until now. It was almost comical. She wanted me to be uncomfortable. She wanted me to feel pressured to leave, to avoid any confusion, to cringe at her superiority. But what she didn't expect was that I had no intention of making it easy for her. I made a point of acting as naturally as before. I kept trying on the glasses, analyzing the details in the mirror while she stood there, waiting for some reaction, as if her mere presence was enough to intimidate me. And then, as if the universe had decided that I deserved a present, the employee she had called earlier reappeared.
Did you find what you were looking for?
The woman was visibly uncomfortable. That wasn't what she wanted. She wanted the clerk to take her side, to confirm her absurd suspicions, to pressure me to leave the store. But, to her misfortune, the clerk was just doing her job. "Yes, I think I'll take this one," I replied, holding up the most expensive glasses on the shelf. The woman's expression changed instantly. It was almost possible to see her mind trying to process the information. I shouldn't be buying anything. I shouldn't have had the money to spend there. I should have left before someone told me to. The clerk took my glasses and led me to the checkout, not even paying attention to the other woman. And that's when I saw what desperation does to a person. She followed us. Yes, even after everything, even after approaching me, even after I made it clear that I was there like any other customer, she still hadn't given up on her ridiculous theory. As I walked down the corridor, taking the card from my wallet, I felt her presence behind me. I could feel her gaze burning into the back of my head, as if she was waiting, hoping that something would go wrong. And when I handed the card to the clerk, I could almost hear her breath catch. She expected it to be refused. She expected the big truth to be revealed. She hoped that the moment of revenge would come, proving that all the time she had wasted following me was worth it. But all that happened was the unmistakable sound of the little machine confirming the purchase. The look of defeat on her face was priceless. But I knew she hadn't accepted it yet, and I was right, because instead of walking away and pretending nothing had happened, she decided to double her bet. And that's when it got even more ridiculous. If that woman had any sense at all, she would have swallowed her shame and got on with her life after the cashier fiasco. But, as it turned out, common sense wasn't her strong suit. After seeing my payment go through without a hitch, she could have pretended nothing had happened, left the store with dignity, and, perhaps, reflected on her decisions in life. But no, she chose to double down. As I picked up my bag, I noticed that she hadn't moved. She just stood there, her arms crossed, her eyes fixed on the cashier, as if she was waiting for something to happen. It was then that I understood. She wasn't going to give up until she saw me humiliated. So, she did the unthinkable.
Are you sure this is his card?
The silence in the store was almost deafening. Even the clerk, who until then had just been doing her job, stopped for a second, as if her brain needed extra time to process the absurdity of the question. My whole body went on alert, not from fear, but from sheer disgust. Because now it was no longer suspicion disguised as concern. It wasn't a look of silent judgment. Now it was a direct accusation. She really didn't think I could afford it, or rather, she didn't want to believe that I could. The attendant looked at me, visibly at a loss as to what to do. But before she could say anything, I decided to get it over with. "Are you suggesting that I stole a card now?" The woman's face twitched. Perhaps she didn't expect me to react. Maybe she thought I'd just stay quiet, ashamed, as if I owed her some explanation. But I didn't. So I continued. "If you have any doubts, call the manager. Or, better still, call security. That way, everyone can see what a fool you're paying." Her shoulders tensed. For the first time, she seemed to really hesitate. The employee, who had clearly had enough of the situation, took the invoice and, without patience, handed it to me. "Everything's fine, sir. Here's your purchase." It was at this point that the woman realized there was no way out. She could continue to insist and be even more embarrassed, or she could finally accept that she had lost. And, for once, she made the right choice. She turned on her heels and hurried away without looking back. I smiled. I picked up my bag and left calmly, enjoying every second of my victory. But before I left the store, the employee gave me a complicit look. "That happens more than it should," she muttered. Unfortunately, I knew it was true, but at least this time, someone left with a good lesson. And it wasn't me. If I thought that woman had learned her lesson after leaving the store humiliated, I was wrong. She still hadn't gotten over her own shame. As I left the mall, I noticed that she was still around. Standing near the food court, she pretended to work on her cell phone, but her eyes went from me to the bag I was carrying. It was obvious that she was still mulling over her own defeat and trying to find a way out of it, and that's when she made her final move. She called a security guard. She spoke quickly, pointed discreetly at me, and gesticulated too much. as if she were denouncing a serious crime. The security guard listened patiently, then started walking towards me. When he approached me, he explained that he needed to check my purchase because there has been a report of suspicious activity. I looked at the woman, who feigned disinterest, and took a deep breath. I wasn't surprised. I'd expected it. Calmly, I took the receipt out of the bag and handed it to the security guard. He looked at it, checked the amounts, the name of the store, the time of purchase. Within seconds, he shook his head, clearly annoyed. "Everything's fine, sir. Sorry for the inconvenience." So I took the note back and put the bag away. But before the security guard left, I made a point of making it clear what was really going on. I explained that this woman had followed me around the store, approached me, doubted my payment, and was now trying to force a situation where I would be blamed. She had no proof, no real motives, just an irrational certainty that I couldn't be there buying something expensive. The security guard understood instantly. He turned to her and asked her to accompany him to the mall administration to clarify her complaint. Her expression changed completely. First there was shock, then hesitation. She tried to argue, claimed she was just being cautious, but the security guard didn't give her any space. The rule was clear. If she was making an accusation, then she had to answer for it. That's when she did what people like her always do when they realize they're not going to win. She turned her back and left as quickly as she could. The security guard crossed his arms and let out a tired laugh. It happens more than it should. It wasn't surprising. This sort of thing happens all the time. But at least that day she learned that she couldn't go around accusing anyone for no reason. And I left the mall calm, satisfied, and with my new glasses. She, on the other hand, left with no dignity at all. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel and like it. Want more stories like this? We've chosen 2 videos that you'll love. Just click on the card on the screen. See you in the next one.